Hey my friends, thanks for watching. This is Mike, that helpful dad, with another video for you about best practices and tips about the pharmaceutical representative industry. If you watch some of my other videos, you know I've tried to share some of the best practices and tips that I've learned over the years, and hopefully those videos have been helpful to you. I've heard, though, from a lot of viewers and readers of my blog that they have questions on how to break into the pharmaceutical industry and kind of what are the different career paths that are even available. It's kind of hard to get that information. And so today on this video, I want to talk about that question. What are the career paths that are available from a sales standpoint? In other words, a non-management track, a non-executive track. You can still do very well for yourself on the sales track. But where can you go, right? So we know that there are pharmaceutical representatives, and there's a whole variety within that. And there are medical device sales representatives. There's capital equipment, there's disposables, there's emerging new technology and healthcare IT, and then there's this whole new beast of access and reimbursement as well too, and the importance that's growing in there. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the different career paths. I'm going to break down to you what I see as the pros and cons and just maybe give you a little bit of guidance. Now, if you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you can get other videos that are like it. And if the video is helpful to you, make sure that you share it with others too. If you have questions, put a comment down below or email me and I'll try to give you guidance. I don't know everything. I'm just an average Joe just like you, but I've been in the industry for 15 years and I've enjoyed myself, and so I want to be able to share kind of what I've learned. And so let's start off with that first traditional career path, which is the pharmaceutical quote-unquote drug rep. So within this career path, there are primary care sales, there's office-based specialty sales, there's hospital sales, and then there's also what we would term like the upper echelon being rare disease and kind of oncology. But let's start with primary care sales. So this would be the traditional thing that, you know, if you go to the doctor yourself and you see somebody that comes into your primary care doctor dressed up in a suit or something, and they go back and they talk with the doctor, that's probably a primary care pharmaceutical sales representative. So what they're basically doing is they're providing evidence to the doctor and their staff about their product. Think maybe like an allergy pill or some diabetes medications. They're educating the doctor on how the drug works, how it's different than other medications. They're providing evidence, and they're also probably talking about how the reimbursement process works, like where it's covered on which Medicare or Medicaid or commercial plans and not. And then hopefully the doctor would buy into what they're saying and help identify a patient who could benefit from the product. They would write a prescription, give it to the patient would take it to their pharmacy, get it filled, get the medication, and then all of that would essentially kind of be tracked, and the pharmaceutical representative is responsible for a certain quota or a different amount of sales for quarter or a year, and there's some sort of compensation provided to the representative that's in addition to their base salary. They're probably getting some sort of a commission paid to them. So that'd be traditional primary care sales. The positives is it's relatively easy to break into that environment. You don't need a lot of experience. A lot of people start in that right out of college, right? And it can be a fun job, and you get the chance to really kind of cut your teeth. The negative is there is a lot of representatives. Access to physicians can be very challenging because these physicians, primary care physicians, are very busy because of the way insurance works nowadays. They don't get as much money per patient as they used to, and that's a whole nother video there. But basically they have to see as many patients as they can to try to make money that they used to make from before, and so they don't have a lot of time to talk with primary care representatives unless you do like a special event, like maybe a lunch or a dinner or something like that, where you can get a little bit more time with them. So the biggest challenge really is access. There's a lot of other representatives that want the same thing as you, and you know, the compensation obviously there is not as high as it could be in other locations, but that's probably where you're going to have to start in pharmaceutical sales. Most people from there, if they stay on, again, we're talking about non-management career paths. So if you just stay on the sales rep career paths, and you can do very well for yourself on a sales career path, make as much, if not more, even than managers and sometimes executives make. But the next career path would be office-based specialty sales. So you're still visiting people in outside offices, driving from office to office, but you're visiting a specialist. Maybe it is a nephrology specialist who deals only in kidneys, or maybe it's a cardiac specialist who deals only with the heart, or some other specialist, right? you're still driving around and you're visiting these individual offices. Now, generally, there's less representatives that you have to kind of be competitors against because there's not as much volume, right? You have these more specialized type products. They cost more money, so it's a little bit harder to get them approved by insurance sometimes. But usually the compensation is higher for the representative. Sometimes, depending on the office, you can get more time with the providers and you get more involved in the key opinion leader sales process, which using key opinion leaders and advocates for your product is something I talk about in other videos. It becomes very important in office-based specialty sales. Office-based specialty sales, can go all the way up to oncology type sales and rare disease sales, which can be a very lucrative career for you as well too. And it can be very rewarding because a lot of times these patients are very sick and they really need your medication that often can save their life. And so that's certainly obviously very rewarding. So that's office-based specialty sales, similar to primary care, but kind of like a next level, so to speak. From there, we go to hospital sales. And hospital sales is my favorite type of sales. You get a chance to, instead of going from little office to office, you go to a hospital. It could be a small community hospital or a large academic type center hospital. And essentially what you're doing there is you're trying to work with a variety of players, not just the individual doctors themselves who write the product, but you're also probably training the staff. If it's a complex type of a product, you're certainly working with a pharmacy because they need to understand how your product works and they want to identify the right patient so they can control utilization because hospitals have a budget, they have to work within it, and pharmaceutical products tend to be a very large portion of that budget sometimes, and so they're going to try to limit your access so that you don't influence people to write the product for inappropriate patients. They also might just try to limit your access just because they want to be the ones that have a voice to talk to the doctors. So not that there's anything wrong with that. They certainly deserve the right to manage their facility the way they see fit. But as a hospital sales representative, the way it's developing now is you have to try to find ways to gain access to the decision makers in what we would call the D-suite or department head level so that you can help them to develop protocols to identify the appropriate patient type and then utilize the product in an appropriate manner. Also, you may be involved with either supply chain if you are dealing with products that go through supply chain, and maybe you're involved in working with either directly yourself or one of your national account managers on doing contracting with the hospital or their group purchasing organization. But hospital sales, very diverse in terms of the different hats that you have to wear and the different levels that you go through. And oftentimes what you'll find, not every time, it depends on your product, but if you have a pretty unique product, especially if it's used in the critical care units where these patients are potentially near death, you'll find that not only do the doctors want to talk to you, but the staffs want to talk to you. They want to bring you in. They want your help because you're helping them to save their patients. And I have found hospital sales to be incredibly rewarding for all the different things that you could do in hospital sales. And I have a whole other video about hospital sales, but I'm going to leave it there for now so this video doesn't get to be too long. We still have a lot more to cover. The final piece of the pharmaceutical traditional drug rep career path is what we call rare disease or oncology. And so oncology being cancer drugs, and then you also have rare disease, which is a whole host of different disease states, but there's not a lot of these patient types. And I'm lumping oncology in with rare disease because a lot of times these types of situations involve you working with a complex process to get the drug into the patient's hands. It might involve a specialty pharmacy might be involved. You might have to work with your patient hub services, which is kind of helping the patient from a case management standpoint. There could be nurse educators involved. There could just be a whole host of people on your team that are helping to get the drug to the patient's hand when it happens. There could be situations involved where there's additional reimbursement guidance that needs to occur because this product is used on what we call a buy and bill basis, where it's handled a little bit differently than traditional drugs are handled. And again, that's another video. But the point is, these situations are very complex. There's not a lot of these patients. And as a result of this, these types of representatives have to be well-versed in a wide variety of skill sets in order to get the product into the patient's hands. And when that happens, particularly if it's a rare disease type product or an oncology product where cancer patient is involved in, and you're saving a patient's life right there, there's really nothing more rewarding than that. These representatives can be very highly compensated because they, are dealing with such complex situations. And so if your goal is to stay within the pharmaceutical career rep path, you may want to try to have a goal to get into rare disease or oncology. So if you're building your career path early, and if you know what your goal is, you can build a game plan to try to get there and try to get that experience along the way. You can't, most likely, you're not going to be able to step into one of these roles as your first role in pharmaceutical sales, but you could certainly work there over time. So I was in the industry for 5 years, and after 5 years, I was able to get into the oncology and then rare disease space. And that is where I've operated really for the majority of my career, and I've been very happy there. And a lot of my career path has also been spent in the hospital rare disease space. So I've been able to enjoy both hospital sales and rare disease. And I've been very happy with that. So that's the first rung, which is pharmaceutical drug rep. The next opportunity is a different path, and that would be medical device sales. So the first question is, well, what is a medical device, right? Well, the definition of that is not easy. A medical device can be anything from, I've heard some people describe an insulin pen, which is like a product that's filled with insulin that you have the patient inject as a potential medical device. It is a medical delivery device, and that could be, classified like that. But most people would say a medical device would be something a little bit more involved. Maybe it could be a stent that's put in a patient's heart. It could be a larger piece of medical equipment that delivers a drug into a ventilator circuit or something like that for a patient that's in the hospital. There's a wide variety of what medical devices are, and it's beyond the scope of this video. The point is, there is a physical type of a product that is either used in conjunction with an FDA-approved drug, so to speak, or it's kind of stands on its own, and maybe it's monitoring oxygenation levels or something like that, right? But as a salesperson, your job is to sell that device into a clinic or most likely a hospital setting. And so whereas pharmaceutical representatives get paid on a fairly high, depending on the role, base, and then commission for the sales that occur, a medical device sometimes, and again, not always, because there's a lot of diversity here, but sometimes you'll see slightly lower base pays for medical device versus pharmaceutical representatives, but a higher commission type of a structure, because these things can be very expensive, $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 for a medical device, and you might get a portion of that upon sales. And then there are other ways that medical devices could be involved. You might sell a drug-device combination, which is one of the things I was able to do in my career, into the hospital sales space. And so then you get pharmaceutical experience and medical device experience. That's a somewhat unique role. It might be hard to find those, but it's still, the point is that it is out there. I enjoyed medical device sales. In fact, when you combine medical device and hospital, to me, that was the most enjoyable part of my career. And the reason why is because these medical devices are very complicated, and particularly if it's a high risk, low use device where the patient is very critically ill and the staff doesn't use the device very often, they need to really know how it works when they do need to use it. They're going to want you to come in and talk with them and educate them and have your team come in and talk. And so, again, we talked about those challenges that primary care drug representatives face when getting to be able to talk with anybody can sometimes be a challenge, right? When you have a medical device, again, in the hospital setting, a lot of times they want you there. And that is extremely rewarding to be a part of the team. It really makes you feel awesome, right? And so I highly loved medical device sales. And if you have, now it's very technical. You really got to know. I know a number of people that have tried to get into it and unfortunately weren't able to pass like the competency tests. But if you have a technical mindset, and I don't really consider myself as having one, although I'm very analytical and I can pick up things relatively quickly. If you're that kind of a mindset and you like working with this type of equipment, then I would encourage you to look into medical device sales. Okay. The next one, number 3, is capital equipment. So this would be kind of a step beyond medical device, and think like hospital beds or really expensive like lasers, robotic surgery or something like that, or the ventilators that are used, potentially into some of the hospitals as well too. Very expensive products that you need to sell, again, usually into the hospital setting. And so what's the pros and cons here? Well, these representatives, these are kind of like what I would consider maybe like Green Berets or something like that. And it's not been my experience. I chose not to get into capital equipment sales. It is high risk, high reward. Essentially, and I have a great deal of respect for capital equipment sales, but it can be a very stressful lifestyle because it's generally a long tail sales cycle. Could take 6 months or a year or more to make a sale. Now, when you make the sale, you might get rewarded with a very high commission check. But if you don't make the sale, generally these types of representatives, and again, we're just generalizing here, tend to have low base salaries. And the reason why they often have low base salaries is because they want to be encouraged by their company to get out there and sell. And in other words, if you don't hunt, you don't eat, right? And so if you don't make that sale, you have wild fluctuations in your income, right? So very high income, but then you could also have periods where you're not making those sales, or the sale is just taking longer than you thought. And there's a lot of red tape involved in hospitals now. It can be very difficult to do. If you like that high stress mindset, then capital equipment can be for you. It's not a lifestyle that I really wanted, and so, just being honest, it wasn't for me. But if you are a capital equipment representative, we would love to hear from you on the pros and cons of what your experience has been so that we can all learn together, right? Next is the disposables path. So think like surgical gloves and, small low-ticket type items. The disposables path is another option, and essentially, usually, most likely involving hospital sales for the most part in order to get enough volume. Base salaries generally could be somewhere around the pharmaceutical rep range. And again, if you know differently, please, of course, educate us. And then you have commissions on top of that. Now, the challenge with disposable sales is, oftentimes the products between the competitors are very similar, right? Similar to the way allergy medications are, somewhat unique, but for the most part pretty similar. It becomes more of a relationship sell. With disposables, it is largely based on relationship with the account that you work, and then your willingness to negotiate on a contracting standpoint to build that price to value equation. But a lot of times it's just how much will you discount versus what the competitor will do. And so it can be very rewarding, but that wasn't a career path. The product just didn't really interest me as much. Medical gloves, surgical supplies, things like that. I wanted to be more involved in situations where I saw the impact on the patient, specifically as a result of the drug or the medical device itself. Not in any way disparaging the disposables career path. It can be very rewarding, but that's what you're dealing with, is those types of supplies, so to speak. So you're probably working with supply chain and materials management, and you're developing relationships there to service those accounts. So we've talked about pharmaceutical drug recs, medical device sales, capital equipment, disposables. What else is out there? Well, there are new career paths emerging. There is the healthcare IT marketplace. There is the fact that electronic medical records now have to be implemented throughout these hospitals so they can all communicate together. There's software sales involving emerging products in healthcare and mobile technology. I mean, there's so much emerging there. Those types of representatives, career paths are out there. There's the emergence of lab testing and DNA type testing. Someone has to, get that product out there to the marketplace. There's, again, virtual reality. There's so many new paths that are emerging that require sales folks in the healthcare career path, and those are options as well too. One thing we didn't talk about in this video, and it's really not for the purpose of this video, but I'll tease a different video for you. It's working for a startup or a small biotech or a non-public company versus a large organization. That'll be another video I do for you as well too. But a lot of times these healthcare IT type things are smaller startups. The final career path that I'm going to include in here because it's a non-management track, although it's not necessarily directly related with sales or the commercial team, but that is access and reimbursement. And as it gets harder and harder for commercial payers to approve products, they don't want to pay for these products because they're becoming more expensive. The importance of educating our offices and our hospitals on reimbursement best practices and contracting on a win-win basis is critical, and is going to continue to become even more important. So if you have the desire to continue to develop yourself along the career path, I encourage you to look at reimbursement, or what we call market access roles. And so there's just 3 of them I'm going to mention here today, and that is the an area reimbursement manager, or some sort of a reimbursement manager, where you are partnering with your sales counterpart, and once they get a script occurring, particularly think of like rare disease, specialty type products, real expensive products, they often get declined by the insurance company and require an appeals process to get them through. Well, it's the reimbursement person, the reimbursement manager, that kind of navigates that and advises the office and the staff and kind of works with a cross-collaboration team to get that done, and is partnering with their sales folks. So that is becoming critically important, particularly in the rare disease oncology space. Next is what we would call a national account manager, or a corporate account manager, or a strategic account manager. This is somebody that kind of is a cross-functional leader of what we would call local pharmaceutical representatives or territory representatives, and the strategic account manager is responsible for these really complex academic centers, or high trauma centers where the smaller hospitals refer into the larger hospitals, and they may have one product or multiple products they're responsible for, and they're working with what we call the C-suite, or the CFO and the different directors and leadership within the hospital team to contract with them, and then they're probably also working with their sales teams and on the internal side, and then the medical department heads on the outside to develop protocols and or launch a product, or whatever it may be. The strategic account manager is kind of like this quarterback who's kind of guiding everything. And then you have these national account managers who may assist with contracting at the hospital or the group purchasing level, or they may assist with maybe we sometimes call them corporate account managers, where they're actually meeting with the insurance plans and trying to help to get better coverage or reduce barriers to usage of their products if a hospital accepts a certain insurance, or a clinic or a doctor accepts that insurance. It's important that the plan covers it. And the only way the plan is going to cover it is if somebody from the medical company, the pharmaceutical company, has met with the plan to form a relationship with them. So it's a very complicated process, but the point is the person that's in charge of that would be called either a national account manager or a corporate account manager, or some other type of a situation where they're working in a pseudo-sales capacity to influence the insurance companies to cover the medication or to contract with the hospital. So my point in bringing up that last little group right there, reimbursement and contracting, is because it's another career path that you could potentially advance to. And so hopefully you've been able to see from watching this video that there is a world of opportunity that is available in medical sales. Even if you don't become a manager, you can do so much. You can do very well for yourself from a personal rewarding standpoint as well as a financial rewarding standpoint, just by engaging in this career path. Not to mention the fact that you are making a difference in a patient's life, that if they were not exposed to your product, their life would be diminished. Maybe they would even die. And so if that doesn't motivate you, I don't really know what will. But I want to thank you for watching today. This is part of a series of video about pharmaceutical best practices. I hope that you enjoyed it. I sincerely appreciate you watching it. If I can be of assistance to you and answer any questions, please let me know. Thanks for watching. God bless you.